Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to this program. There is endless drama. Since the ruling yesterday by the High Court that the 12 CCC candidates, their papers were submitted on nomination day, but they were late. And the High Court ruled that they should be barred from participating. There's been further developments. Chamisa is now saying that if they are barred, the party will not participate in the elections. Let's just listen to what he has got to say, and then we can analyze it.
Ameno kwaenda kuda kumatarezi mosha kana kuba andizi azama kuti triple C makandidates haabvumizi kuparticipate ndikati unotamba iwe haatiziva mushe munhu uyayo anotionera kumhepo. Nyika isi yaMunangagwa, nyika isi yeZanu PF, nyika ndeyamwari, nyika ndeyevanhu. Anozvirovera nhema kwanzi nyika ine vene vayo, hausi wemwene, mwene ari kudenga. Zvafarisa. Hakuna munhu anoramba ari pachigaro. Anofana kubvunza Mugabe nyaya. Anofana kubvunza Gaddafi nyaya. Anofana kubvunza Mobutu Sese Seko nyaya. Chero ukanzi uri dictator rokupi, your time will come. Saka hayo zvaari kutaura izvo ndichasvika kwavangu Bulawayo. Hakuna munhu anodisqualify. Kana vadisqualify macandidates nullify my elections. Nullify my elections, you have driven this country into anarchy. Iwe wega kwete isu wakanganisa nyika. Ewe uchiziva kuti apa hausi kupinda nokuti akakurongera. 2018 wakada kundita chitame. Nanjeke zvinezvo hakuna unogerwa asipo.
Welcome to Benjamin. Benjamin, there we have it, a statement by Honorable Advocate Nelson Chamisa, the CCC candidate for the presidential election. What do you take?
Hi, and thank you for having me. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in. Very eventful developments, let's say very eventful week thus far, with twists and turns at every given opportunity. Yes, it's interesting when it comes to this this court ruling of the 24 Bulawayo CCC candidates. It's not quite clear as to what really transpired there at the nomination court, because there's so many tales,
Well, let's take one by one issue at a time. Okay, if we're going to the court challenge, the High Court judgment was that they should be barred. They've appealed that. Now, What Chamisa is saying in his address there is he is going to Bulawayo. I don't know what you take from that. What is he trying to say there?
I don't think him going to Bulawayo is going to change anything. If what the courts say, I think the courts have the overall, say at the end of the day. So whatever if he decides to hear what the court's verdict from the comfort of his house, from wherever he wishes to be, I don't think it is going to make any difference by him being present there. That's one thing for sure.
I think I totally agree with you. I think this is once you have appealed to the Supreme Court, leave it to the Supreme Court. Because him saying that I'm going there to Bulawayo and this is not going to happen, this is just political grandstanding again. Because I remember the case of the court judgment, I think it was in 2019, where the High Court judged that his seizing of powers after Tsvangirai's death was unconstitutional. And he appealed it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court endorsed that. And thereafter, what followed was the total chaos within the opposition camp. As initially it was Kupe who was the leader of the party, of the opposition, and she recalled some of the MPs, and they were to spend the rest of that parliamentary the 4 years just fighting among themselves. They were not being effective at all in government as an opposition party. And the grandstanding by Chamisa that is challenging this, all came to nothing. He went to the Supreme Court endorsed that position. So are we looking at a reenactment of the same thing here?
Definitely. I think it's just him, trying to. It's all hot air at the end of the day. I mean, this is what it comes down to. I personally don't see whether you are there or you are not there will change the ruling. I don't believe he's got the authority anyway. So it's just him, pleasing the crowd, probably, political gimmick. But then, like I was trying to say, just to clear the position, to say, the reason for their actual, them being barred from contesting is not quite clear. But the fact is, some say it's according to different newspapers and different reporters, journalists. They are saying CCC handed in their papers, but then there was a missing or there was a complication with one of the signatures. It did not match. So others are saying they came at the 11th hour, at 15 minutes before, 45 minutes before the close of the election, of the process. Others are saying that they totally came late. Others are saying they were left outside. But the fact of the matter is, I think CCC should have known better and had done their processes a little bit earlier. And from what we have heard from him, he was trying to, it was Chamisa who was trying to protect his comrades from getting, into all the altercations with Zanu PF. That's one of the reasons why they decided to file late. But for me, I think that was a very bad move from them to go on the 11th hour. This would have just.
Well, can I just comment on what happened on the day
Sure.
of nomination?
Sure.
From my understanding, I actually listened to an interview that with Zimbabwe, where he was interviewing Professor Welshman Nube, who was one of the lawyers representing the 12 CCC candidates. The nomination papers for CCC, the 12 candidates for CCC, were handed to the court, to ZEC, at exactly 15:25. That's 34 minutes before the close of the nomination day. And the nomination process was supposed to close at 4 o'clock. Now, ZEC is saying, well, we received them before the closing day, and so we processed them. And according to them, they processed them until way after midnight. Now, everybody would agree that in this particular case, we don't know why it took so long to process them. We don't know whether it was just the 12 or there were others. We don't know. But nonetheless, the processing took up to midnight. And they could not make their payments, nomination fee, then, because it could not be processed. So they had to wait until the offices opened the following day. That's when they made their payments. The argument really is, the way I understand it, is, was it reasonable for these people to hand in their nomination papers late? Because we should not forget that ZEC announced that you could hand in your nomination papers on Monday or Tuesday, which were 2 days before the nomination day itself, which was a Wednesday, so that all the initial checks could be carried out, so that on nomination day, if all your papers are in order, all you'll be coming is doing the final thing, i.e. making the payments, and then you'll be duly nominated. Yeah. CCC did not take advantage of that. Instead, handed in 12 of their nomination papers 34 minutes before the closing time. Was that reasonable? That is what the court, I understand, is judging on. I'm not a judge, and in this particular case, the high court judge ruled that no, that wasn't reasonable. They've appealed it. Let's hear what the Supreme Court says. But you cannot deny that they were given the opportunity to get their nomination papers checked on time, because they're 2 days earlier on. Why didn't they use them? I think that is some of the things that the High Court must have considered, in coming to their judgment. But at the end of the day, it cannot be denied that CCC is not coming clean on this issue. And they're jumping onto this bandwagon to blame Zanu PF. Yes, Zanu PF may be taking advantage of it, and indeed it is taking advantage of it. But surely you cannot deny that CCC were their own worst enemies. But let's move on to the next issue. The next issue was CCC saying that they will boycott the elections. What do you think of that one?
Or just clearing the air on that position. Well, for me, I'm a bit biased on this one. I am very, very happy in terms of any boycott, though unorthodox, dubious. But a call for a boycott is something that meant a great deal to me, and it made sense. Looking at the political the political environment leading into the elections, and the events that we have been covering, from every single day to the viewers that actually follow this channel, they would know that every day has been very eventful, with so much neck grabbing, twisting, arm twisting, and trying to worm their way into taking over a democratic, what is supposed to be a democratic process.
Well,
You know,
in this particular case, if you're going to boycott it because 12 of your candidates were barred from participating, that is not the same thing as you're boycotting because the voters' roll is flawed, or people are being harassed and frog marched to attend Zanu PF cell meetings and then in preparation to be frog marched to vote. That is totally different. If you are boycotting because 12 of your triple C candidates have been barred from participating, you cannot pretend to boycotting because the playing field is not level.
I think this this event, I think this was the pinnacle of or let's say this was where it tested their tolerance level, and it could not take it anymore. So I think everything has just been summed up, because if you listen to him, he says, we know what you did the last time, and the last time they did not bar any candidates from, I think one maybe from Bulawayo South, but the rest were able to compete, to compete for the seats. But I think this was the heightened uh, position where Triple C could see that this year war is one war they would not win, because I mean, you can't say they had strategies. I don't think they had strategies for this one, because if they had the strategy for this one to say let us go on the 11th hour, it backfired. And then Zanu PF obviously went there with all fingers pointing to say this is what happened, and now it kind of just like turns everything upside down. But like I said, if they had said amongst others, and of which I think he partly tried to summarize to say this and other other factors are what is going to lead to the boycott. And I think, yeah, if other factors are included, as no verified voters roll and all the tricks, frog matching people, if it all comes together, I think it's a very, very good move, and one that I had been waiting to hear for a very, very long time. And I think if you take everything into consideration that has been happening, I think that is a very, very bold and right move. Next step would be to see how Zanu PF will react to that.
Well, Zanu PF has reacted to that already. And they've made it very clear that they are not going to be scared by that move. You cannot try to superimpose the two. As much as Triple C would want to say that this was the last straw, it wasn't. Those problems of a voters' roll that was no verified voters' roll, those problems were already there. And they were there in the past as well, and you participated. This time, the minute you hear that 12 of your candidates have been barred from participating, you announce that you're going to boycott the elections. So the issue will be you boycotted because 12 of your guys were barred from participating. Now, what I'm saying to you is the 12 were barred from participating. Was it reasonable? I think the jury is out there. Even if you get independent judges from other countries, you name whatever country you want, you may find some of them will have given the same judgment. And therefore, then for you to boycott for something that you did yourself is the most ridiculous argument you could present. I think in this case here, Triple C are just shooting themselves in the foot. It's bad enough they shot themselves in the foot by failing to get those 12 nominations submitted in time. But now by boycotting elections on the basis that Zanu PF and blaming Zanu PF for their own fault, this is the equivalent of they shot themselves in the foot. Now they're putting the gun to the head and blowing their head off. Do you seriously think that anyone will have any sympathy for CCC? The answer is no. Why should anyone sympathize with you? This was a self-inflicted problem. That is the reality of it.
Yeah, in as much as going on, on the 11th hour, I think it wasn't a wise decision on CCC's part, right? But if they are to cite, amongst others, I think it would give weight to their claim, because the amongst others is just so much. I mean, the findings from Tim Pachedu itself is just so overwhelming. Even Tim Pachedu actually came to say, with all this evidence that we are giving you, and again, just saying the same thing that David Coulter said, with all the overwhelming evidence that is there, the only logical thing was to boycott. And I think, like I said, unorthodox it took this event to make them realize that, this battle is not only lost, but
sorry,
was never a way you were going to
there. When did he say that?
That was leading up to the 2013 election, about the participation of the 2013 election, and not just him only, but even SADC also said, they wanted MDC then, before it became CCC, that participating in these elections was just a bad idea. And like I said, it just happened that this year was the event that opened their eyes. And for me, I say, if you bundle it all together, well, I think they have a case to boycott.
Well, I think the article you were referring to is the quotation from his book. If you read the entire quotation, it's very clear. The 2013 election process was so flawed, so illegal, that the only logical step was to withdraw, which would have compelled SADC to hold Zanu PF to account. But such was the mistrust between MDCT and MDCN that neither could withdraw, for fear the other would remain in the election, winning the seats and giving the process credibility. In other words, they participated out of greed. The same greed that they are participating now. So in many ways, the boycotting now, when they have been they found they've given away 12 of the gravy train seats, would only reinforce that position, that you were participating out of greed. Because now you've given away, out of your own stupidity, it must be said, the 12 gravy train seats. Now you decide, now we'll boycott. It's because you have given away the gravy train seats. That's why you're boycotting. You're not boycotting because the process is flawed. You knew that already. So I don't think that will sell personally. If you're going to boycott for the right reason. And in this particular case, they can pretend they're boycotting because the voters' roll is flawed, there's violence and so forth. People turn around and say there was violence in 2018. You did not boycott. You knew there was violence at the beginning of this process, and you were participating. You only decided to boycott when you realize that by your own stupidity, you had actually given away, say, 12 of the Bulawayo gravy train seats. Because let's face it, it's the urban centers that the Triple C can consider their strongholds. So they've given away some of their strongholds, and now suddenly they want to boycott. I don't think it will carry. That's a lead balloon that is never going to fly. Personally, I don't believe anyone will buy that.
Okay, here is the situation. I believe, well, I strongly believe that you can't say because they did this in the past they cannot correct that mistake. I don't think we can write that off and say just because Triple C has been doing this in the past, why now? Some people can just come to their senses. It's never too late for somebody to come to their senses. Just the same way, it's never too late. I mean, with all with all the evidence that we have been presenting, even sharing with our viewers, I mean, it's so overwhelming. What took them so long? Well, it's not the most ideal, reason why they are deciding to boycott, but I think it's still very validated by the fact that there is tons of illegalities and flaws within the Zimbabwean electoral process.
No, I think, Benjamin, I think you need to differentiate between boycotting because you believe the process is flawed, and boycotting because you believe you are no longer going to win the gravy train seats. All I'm saying is boycotting, yes, I totally agree with you. Boycotting under this situation would have been the ideal situation to do. But if you are going to boycott and expect the international community to believe you are boycotting because the process is flawed, then you've got to make sure the people understand that. And in this particular instance, to boycott just after the High Court had said 12 of your MPs were late in submitting their nomination papers would never, it's a lead balloon that is not going to fly in terms of selling it as we are boycotting because the process is flawed. That is the subtle difference. We are
what if they were to bundle it all up?
Sorry?
What if they were to bundle it all up, including all other evidence that have been presented, all other findings, and this would just be also bundled up as to
you can bundle it up as
the reason behind boycotting is not the most ideal, right? I mean, the event that led to them actually saying, now we are about to get to the boycott. I understand that, but it's not the most ideal because it's a 50-50. Whoever you want to blame could be them. Or we don't know. Maybe Zek is the one. I don't know the rules there. To say if you are in the premise, well, I mean, sometimes, you know what, you can go into a shop just before closing. Let's say you walk into Pick and Pay. Pick and Pay closes, let's say, for example, at 7 o'clock. You go in 2 minutes past 7. They're not going to turn you out, right? They may want to close, but as long as you're inside, they will serve you and they will close slightly over that time. So if they're handed in the
nobody's disputing that, Benjamin. The argument here is, was it reasonable that they came, 12 of them, when there was only about 35 minutes left to closing time, so that the processing of them took until midnight, when they had all the opportunity to do so for the first 2 days, Monday and Tuesday. They never used them. Wednesday morning, they had all morning and afternoon to submit, and they did not. They only came with 30 minutes left to closing time. Was that reasonable? That is what the court is deciding on. So in this particular case, we can argue all we want, but the point there is, one has got to say, yes, there's got to be a time when you've got to say, well, you've got to be reasonable. If they had, for instance, done all their paperwork so that they came in even with 5 minutes when all they had to do was make the payment, that would have been paid. Paying alone probably takes maybe 10 or 30 or 15 minutes. But if you've got to check the nomination papers, each one of the people who nominated you, that takes time. And that is why probably they allowed to have the process start on Monday. So the time had been allowed. And in this particular case, I think the argument, I know what you're saying, but I've heard it also on some of the WhatsApp groups being argued over and over again. Oh, no, we can bundle this together with all these other problems. You cannot pretend that that is the reason why you're boycotting the elections now. Because you were not boycotting the elections when you knew all those problems. So everybody can see you are now only tagging it on for convenience. So nobody's going to buy that. And you can try to sell it, but nobody's going to buy it.
Well, I would always say 2 wrongs never make a right? For CCC, I think it was bad the way they played their cards, right? But in terms of, let's say we are honestly supporting, we're putting democracy in front of everything else. What mistake, CCC made, let's put it aside. Whatever Zanu PF is doing, let's put it all aside, right? Whether it was good or right to file the court case and whatever. But in terms of having a democratic election, we were far from it. Zimbabwe needed the process, to be fair, free and fair. And for the first time in a very long time, to actually have democratic elections, for the people of Zimbabwe to actually experience what is a democratic election. Maybe some will be experiencing it for the first time, because I honestly believe probably the 1981 was the most democratic election that people had, because people were so excited about the first time for them to have one of their own as a presidential candidate and to actually win it. So to some extent, that was the most democratic process that we've ever experienced. But beyond that, we know what Zanu PF has been doing. It's been rigging, violating all processes that are leaning towards having a democratic election. So I would say, if you were to bundle it up and to show everything, yes, the coaching is not as good, but amongst all other things, I would say the boycott was the most logical thing to do.
Well, the other thing, actually, maybe to just complete this point, there is talk of the same thing happened in Gweru and also Mtare. CCC candidates were late in submitting their nomination papers. So it's quite possible that if the issue is challenged in those areas too, you could find Triple C having to give up even more seats, because urban centers, as we said, are the strongholds of Triple C, and so they could end up losing more than 12. It's quite possible. But the other thing that I think we should also consider here is this argument that dictators will always fall. I think it is totally misleading in our case, because Zimbabwe's dictators have remained in power because of the opposition, in this particular MDC/CCC, incompetence. If, for instance, MDC had implemented the democratic reforms during the GNU, I think 2013 would have delivered free, fair, and credible elections, and would not be where we are today. And so, therefore, then the argument that dictators will always fall, when you get the chance to remove them and you do nothing, is a fallacy. And I think people of Zimbabwe should wake up to that reality. In this case here, by participating in these elections, put aside this issue of the 12 MPs or candidates who may be disqualified from participating. Triple C was determined to participate. And by participating, they were giving legitimacy to the regime. And so to keep saying that dictatorships will always fall when you are the one who is actually propping them up is something that Zimbabweans should understand and should take very seriously. We are not ending the dictatorship by participating and giving the dictatorship legitimacy. We are not stopping the rigged elections by participating in them on the misplaced faith that we can win rigged elections. That is what some people are making the mistake of. And I think it is important that people understand that. I don't know whether you'd want to make your closing remarks there, Benjamin.
Thank you. So, like I said before, I'm a bit biased to the fact and excited. I'll take it, any way I can. I think a boycott was something that it was long overdue. We are so many elections overdue, because I did not see any of the Triple C strategies actually working out. At every turn, I just saw wheels coming off. Zanu PF had actually had them very much pinned from long back. I mean, if you look at the way how they did the delimitation of the whole thing, I think it was wrong. How they added more constituencies in the rural areas and cut down, on this, and it was just a mess. And I didn't see any possibility of any victory, and I just saw, as this whole thing as a farce, and there was no sign of democracy at all. And partly I blame them, Triple C, for not taking heed of even any recommendations, or not even speaking, or giving democracy a chance. I think they were more driven, yes, by greed and the possibility of higher office, and what comes with it. But if it took 12 to make them realize that, time's up, gentlemen, we are not going anywhere, well, I'll take it anyway. So yeah, let's see how it all unfolds. And thank you so much to our viewers for listening and staying tuned to the program. It's nice having you guys always. Thank you.
Thank you, Benjamin. I think my closing remarks would be, if CCC was to boycott these elections, I think no one in their right mind, be it the European Union or SADC, will in any way fault Zanu PF. This will be considered to be Zanu PF has got political legitimacy by all concerned. I don't think they will ever even consider that the election process was in any way the boycott could be blamed on Zanu PF. You don't boycott elections for your own fault, for your own shortcomings, and then try to blame other people for it. This is a typical Zanu PF mentality, which the international community will never buy. And I don't think SADC will buy it. Particularly SADC, in fact, they'll never buy that. And I don't think even the international community, sympathetic as it is to the election process being flawed, but they will never buy CCC's if they were to go ahead with the boycott. They would have just handed Zanu PF legitimacy in a silver platter. And that is not going to help our cause at all, because then Zanu PF has got the next 5 years to rule, with a super majority, because I think some of the smaller opposition parties would make any significant impact to reduce the 2/3 majority. Zanu PF will win that. And from the rumors that Xavier Kasukuwere will know tomorrow whether he's running, he is probably the only other possible presidential candidate to make any meaningful challenge to Mnangagwa. So it could be that this will be a gift from heaven. And in fact, the party spokesperson, Chris Mutsangwa, has already dismissed the boycott as a non-event, and I don't think it is an event, and I don't think any of the international observers will take the boycott as blame Zanu PF for the boycott. They had time to do it properly, and if you're going to participate, then participate properly. And to think you can bend the rules just because you're the opposition is ridiculous. I think it's one of those situations. So it will be really tragic if CCC decided to participate and then they then withdraw on feeble grounds, which was their own doing. But we'll learn as time goes on. We'll see whether Chamisa is going to live up to his word and boycott these elections. My guess would be he will not boycott. And if he does, you'll just have given Zanu PF an early Christmas gift. That's it. With those words, thanks very much, Benjamin, and good night to the listeners. And we'll discuss tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll know the fate of Xavier Kasukuwere.
Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Benjamin. Thanks again.